It was the dead of winter in Russia, December 1740, and in a stone chamber behind silver-draped windows, a child was born into power. A boy, Ivan. He would be the next emperor, Tsar of all Russia. But this infant would never sit on a throne. He would never rule a court. He would never even speak to the people who called him their king. Because from the moment he took his first breath, others were planning to steal his last. His mother, Anna Leopoldovna, was just 19 years old. She wasn't born for the throne, but the throne had been thrown at her. By blood, politics, and desperation. Anna wasn't even Russian. She was German by birth, and cousin to the empress who ruled before her. Empress Anna of Russia, a woman who ruled with iron gloves, and a heart made of snow. But the empress was dying. She had no child, and she was terrified of the chaos her death might bring. So she crowned the newborn Ivan, her great-nephew, as her successor, and appointed a man named Ernst Byron as regent, to rule in the baby's name. But Byron was hated. The people feared him. The court despised him. And Anna Leopoldovna? She wanted the power for herself. So just a few weeks after giving birth, Anna staged a coup. She overthrew Byron in the dead of night, declaring herself regent of Russia, the protector of her infant son, the emperor. The boy was 2 months old. And while Ivan's name rang out through the churches and was stamped on coins, he never left the nursery. No one would ever see the Tsar speak, or smile, or cry in public. They would only hear his name, and watch his mother rule. But Anna was young, inexperienced, and foolish. She alienated the nobility, insulted the army, and worst of all, she forgot what every Russian ruler must remember. In Russia, power never sits still. It waits, it plots, it strikes. 1 year after her coup, in 1741, power struck back, and this time it came wearing silk, riding beneath the banner of a different empress, Elizabeth Petrovna, daughter of Peter the Great. The people loved her, the soldiers adored her, and she had been quietly building support, watching Anna's missteps, waiting. On the night of December 6th, she acted. By dawn, Anna was dragged from her bed. Her infant son, the emperor, was ripped from the palace, and Empress Elizabeth took the throne. No blood was spilled. But make no mistake, this was not a peaceful transition. The boy Tsar had become a prisoner, not just of a new empress, but of history itself. And for the next 22 years, he would remain hidden. Not a single portrait, no letters, no visitors, no voice, just a name. Ivan VI, the Tsar in the dark. He had once been called Emperor of all Russia, but now he didn't even have a last name. At just 1 year old, Ivan VI was erased from history. No ceremony marked his fall. No grave held his name. He was alive but not free, breathing but invisible. He and his family were placed under house arrest, exiled to the far north. A cold wooden fortress in a land where snow fell more days than it didn't. A place where voices echoed but no one listened. Anna Leopoldovna, once the regent of Russia, now shared her son's cage. And what began as a velvet prison quickly turned to stone. They were moved again, and again. Each transfer more secretive. Each fortress colder, darker, more forgotten. By the time Ivan was 4 years old, he no longer played. By 6 he stopped laughing. And by 10, he barely spoke. But it wasn't just exile. It was erasure. Ivan's name was removed from state records. Servants were forbidden to look at him directly. His very existence became a state secret. Elizabeth, the new empress, feared him. Because deep down she knew. The blood of emperors ran through his veins. And in Russia, blood was more dangerous than any army. Even a boy, even a silent one, could become a symbol. A threat. A spark. So she did what every fearful ruler eventually does. She built a cage made of silence. At age 16, Ivan was moved once more. But this time not with his family. He was taken to a fortress called Shlisselburg, a frozen prison in the middle of a river. No windows, no visitors, no books, no light, just 4 walls, a door that stayed locked, and a boy who had once been Tsar. For the next 8 years he would see no one, not even his brothers, not his mother, not the son. He became a ghost in his own country. But there was one thing Elizabeth feared more than the boy himself: his mother. Because Anna Leopoldovna had ambition, and allies, and even in exile she was still dangerous. So Empress Elizabeth made a decision, one that would stain her soul until her final breath. Anna Leopoldovna was to be eliminated. Some say she was slowly poisoned. Others claim she died of heartbreak. But in 1746, just 6 years after her coup, Anna was dead. No trial, no execution, just silence. And in the icy darkness of Shlisselburg, the news reached Ivan. But he was no longer a child. And he no longer cried. Because in that fortress, there were no tears left to give. Only shadows, and memories, and silence. The walls didn't move. The door never opened. And the boy inside stopped asking why. At Shlisselburg Fortress, Ivan VI was no longer treated as a royal prisoner. He was a living secret. A shameful memory the empire couldn't kill, but couldn't allow to breathe. For 8 years Ivan sat alone. Not in a wing of the prison, but in a single sealed cell. A cot, a bucket, a table. No books, no letters, no prayers, and no name. He was referred to only as the Nameless One, or the Special Prisoner. Even the guards were forbidden from learning his identity. Most of them never saw his face. Over time, Ivan's mind began to fracture. He muttered to himself in strange patterns. He scratched lines into the walls, counting something only he understood. And sometimes, he spoke as if he was still emperor. They called it madness. But what else could you call it? A child, crowned czar before he could walk. Hidden from the world. And caged like an animal? For 22 years. In secret reports sent to Empress Elizabeth, the wardens described his behavior. He speaks to no one unless spoken to. Refuses to eat for days. Mumbles religious phrases in Latin and German. Suffers nightmares. Screams at night. But no physician ever came. No priest was summoned. Because no one cared if the prisoner was sick. They only cared that he stayed quiet. But Elizabeth was growing old. And in the halls of the palace, another power was rising. Catherine. Catherine the Great, a German-born princess, was intelligent, ruthless, and determined. When Elizabeth died in 1762, Catherine seized the throne in a palace coup. She knew of Ivan. She knew the danger. And above all, she knew, if even one noble tried to rescue the long-lost Tsar, her own crown could fall. So Catherine ordered a new command. If anyone tries to free Ivan, he must be killed immediately. It wasn't written in law. It wasn't stamped in ink. But it was spoken. And the guards at Shlisselburg knew what it meant. The boy, now a man, was not to be saved. In 1764, just 2 years into Catherine's reign, that moment finally came. A group of young officers, misled by a false rumor, believed Ivan was the rightful ruler, and meant to restore him. They stormed the prison, killed 2 guards, and made their way to his cell. For the first time in over 20 years, Ivan VI saw a stranger's face not wearing a uniform. They told him, "We've come to free you. You are our emperor." And Ivan? He only blinked, confused, trembling. "Who am I?" he whispered. Before he could take a step, the guards burst in, and the order was carried out. Ivan VI was stabbed to death, alone, in the dark, by the very men who had guarded him since childhood. He was 23 years old. His body was never buried with honor, his name never restored, and his crown was never even touched. His killers buried the body quickly. No priest, no coffin, no marker. Just a name scratched in a hidden report. The subject is deceased. Mission fulfilled. No one in the palace spoke of it. Catherine made no announcement. No funeral. No mourning. An emperor had died. But Russia acted as if he had never lived. And yet, the truth had a way of leaking through cracks. Whispers spread. Among palace guards. Among prisoners. Among clerics. The story of a forgotten czar. A boy crowned at birth, imprisoned at 1, murdered at 23, began to echo again. Even in silence he became a ghost. Catherine the Great would rule for 34 years. Her reign would be called a golden age. But in private, some claimed she had nightmares of Ivan, that she heard knocking at her door, that she dreamed of the cell. We don't know if that's true, but we do know this. In 1796, the year she died, one of her last documents was a renewed order. If any man ever dares to claim descent from Ivan VI, they are to be executed without trial. Even in death he was feared. What was left of Ivan? No portraits, no voice, no grave. But the silence surrounding his life was louder than 1,000 sermons. Centuries later, historians tried to find the truth. Who had really killed him? What were his final words? Why had his mother never tried to escape? Some even questioned if he had truly died that night, or if a double had been slain in his place. But the records were destroyed. The witnesses vanished. The secrets buried beneath the snow and stone of Shlisselburg. Today tourists visit the fortress. They take photos, laugh in the courtyards, stand where Ivan once stood. But they don't hear the silence. They don't feel the cold that lived in his bones. And they don't know that beneath their feet a child once asked, "Who am I?" Because Ivan VI wasn't just a prisoner. He was a mirror of power abused, of innocence punished, of truth silenced. They called him mad. They called him forgotten. But in the end he was only this, a boy who was born to be czar, and died without ever being seen.